I'm Mr. B, and today we have a 2012 Volvo XC90 sport utility vehicle. This vehicle is all-wheel drive, and it also has the 3.2 inline 6-cylinder engine. And the complaint that we have is that the coolant is running low at times. So this belongs to a coworker of mine, and she brought up the question that, hey, I'm losing some coolant, can you check it out? So I pulled it in yesterday, and I looked at it, and I found a pretty common problem on these. And it's a coolant leak at one of the flanges that hold the thermostat in. So I want to show you what this leak looks like, and then I want to show you what it takes to repair and what kind of parts you're going to need to repair it, because it's a little bit different than most thermostat flanges on other vehicles. So let's go ahead and pop the hood, and I'm going to show you where this thing's leaking at, and also show you how I found the leak and how you can find the leak as well if you're missing coolant on your Volvo XC90. So let's take a look under the hood. Okay, so this is the passenger side of the vehicle. I got this zoomed out, but I'm going to zoom in right here, and I'm going to put some light on where you see. So this is the edge of the intake. This is about where you check the oil at. And let's see here. If you look down in here, this black tube right here goes into this thermostat housing. And beyond that, it's very hard to see on camera. Beyond that, underneath it, you'll see some blue crusty stuff. It looks like dried up toothpaste almost. And that is where this is leaking at. So this thermostat housing right here, thermostat housing has a hose that goes to it, a large hose, like a radiator style hose. And then it has a smaller hose that goes to it. Looks like maybe a heater hose of some sort. And then it has a sensor that goes to it. Looks like for maybe a gauge or something. It's a 2-wire sensor, and it is down here in this hole. I'll get the camera to zoom. So there's a couple of bolts, looks like Torx head bolts that are holding this on. Should be able to sneak underneath the intake and get this. But first thing we're going to do is just drain the coolant out of the vehicle, and that way we're not having to deal with this up top with coolant all over the place. So we'll pull the bottom radiator hose and drain the coolant. And I'm also going to lift it up and show you guys where this is leaking at, where you can see it from the bottom. It's a little bit easier to see from the bottom than it is from the top. Okay, so underneath this, you see the corner of the oil pan here, and you can see that green pasty stuff that has worked its way down here. Now that should wash off with rain and things like that, so we really don't have to worry about cleaning that too much. I'll clean it up near the thermostat housing just with a brush and some water. But also, on most cars you won't be able to see this area, but it's apparent that this has dragged the ground at one point and it's kind of rubbed a hole in it. So it puts a perfect window on being able to see where this coolant leak is coming from. So this is the front of the block, front of the oil pan. There's the sensor for the oil level right there. And if you look up into that hole, you can really see where that's leaking from. So let's go ahead and get the coolant drained. I'm going to take off the bottom radiator hoses on the driver's side of the car and go ahead and drain the coolant. You may want to also take the reservoir cap off before you do that. And of course, as always, make sure the car's cool before you deal with the cooling system. Okay, so I got the radiator hose loosened. Now what we're going to do is just pull it loose and make sure this gets drained. It's going to make a mess, guys. Try to catch what we can. Make sure you put it in the proper receptacle. And after you get done draining it, you can go ahead and put the hose back on. And tighten up the hose clamp so you don't forget. Sometimes you'll forget and it'll make a big mess. Okay, so I have the camera down actually into the engine here, and the part that we're taking off is where this hose right here is going. And you see it has 2 Torx bits style bolts at the top of it. It also has 2 underneath, and it's going to be really hard to see taking this off, but we're going to be going underneath here with extensions. This is really something I can't show you when I'm doing it and have the camera in here at the same time. So you have 2 down here, and you have these 2 right here, and then you have a switch that you have to unhook right here, a 2-pin switch. And then on the other side of this, you can't see it, but there's about a I don't know, probably a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch hose that runs on the other side of this, and it has probably a 7mm head on the clamp. We're going to take that off, and when we get this hose off, which you have a clamp, a little wire clamp at the very top, we get loose, and we'll take that hose off. I might be able to do that with the camera down here, but and I can show you all that. So hang on just a second. Okay, so let me see if I can get this hose unhooked. So I've got a hook tool right here, and what you're wanting to do is you're taking this and you're pulling this up, and it'll rest right where it's supposed to be, okay? So you don't want to actually remove this whole thing. You just want to pull it up to where, like right here, this will sit in that groove, okay? And so once you do this, this is going to release all the tension on this hose, and you should be able to get in there. I'm probably going to have to put my hand right where the camera is. So I'm going to take the camera out and go ahead and pull this loose and go ahead and take this housing off, and I'll show you the old housing versus the new housing. But I just wanted to show you all that clip right there because really I need to put my hand exactly where the camera is to get in there and get this hose. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move this camera. Okay, so here is the old thermostat housing I just pulled off, and you can see under here, this is, let's see, it's gonna be this is how it sits in the car. And on the back, you can see this is where it's been leaking. This gasket and everything has gotten hard. It is almost rock hard in there, and that is the problem. So we have our other gasket here. This is nice and rubbery, and this is what we're looking at when we replace this. So when we're replacing this, it's going to sit in the car like this. These 2 bolts right here, I'm normally going to take those off first just because they're the harder ones to get to. They are T-30s, and you may need a little extension. This is what I had here, and I used a 1/4 inch ratchet to go into that intake where the camera was sitting and take these off. Really, it's not that hard of a job. It's just I cannot show you how to do this with the camera being there and me not having my hand to get in there to do all this work. So this little 2-pin sensor here just pops off. You just press in the pin here, this pops off. This has a hose clamp on it that has a 7mm end on it, and that just comes loose. It just pops off. Nothing was hung up, nothing was stuck. It was very easy. Just make sure that the old gasket isn't hung up or stuck on the block when you take this off. When you go back in, you just want to torque this down to specifications, and this should take care of the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back on, and then I'm going to vacuum bleed out the system. Go ahead and add the coolant, and I'll show you guys how to do that next. Just a few tips for finishing up the install I want to go over really quick is I'm going to use a vacuum evacuation device for our cooling system, and I'm going to show you another video up here. I'll put it up here where I go in detail on using this piece of equipment, but you can get them for about $100, and they are really, really worth it if you do a lot of coolant work. If not, you're going to have to pour your coolant in and kind of work the air out and pour your coolant in, 50% coolant, 50% water, until it meets, the thermostat opens up and it meets the correct measurement on the bottle. Also, I do recommend just using the correct coolant. You don't want to use just a cheap coolant in this vehicle. This vehicle has a very expensive drivetrain in it, and it's not something I really want to slack on when it comes to fluid usage. So just keep that in mind. One more thing before I leave. When I was putting that larger diameter hose on, you want to make sure that that horseshoe clip that holds it in. You want to push it all the way in and then lubricate the inside of the hose and then push it on until it clicks onto the thermostat housing. So you want to push it on, you want to hear it. It's going to be a very distinct click, and you want to pull back and make sure it doesn't come off. That way, I have seen, and I've done it before, where I've put those on and they don't click all the way and they don't lock in and they'll pop off when you're driving. Of course, you don't want that to happen to you or your customer. So always make sure you hear that distinct click when you click that hose back in, and that will make sure that you have it on tight. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up. We're gonna get it cranked up and air bled out, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, one more thing. If you have your old coolant here, you definitely want to dispose of it in a legal manner. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in our recycling bin. We get this picked up from the shop. But also, if you have any spilled, you want to definitely dilute the area. You don't want to hurt any wildlife or domesticated animals that are in your area. So just make sure that you're being a responsible citizen and you're draining this where it's supposed to go. And never pour it down the drain, of course, and always clean up after yourself. Okay, so once we have the repair done, what we're going to do is we are going to quality check this repair, make sure we don't have any leaks, any drips, anything like that. So what I normally do is I wash off the engine with just a low flow clean water, and then I'm going to test drive it to dry everything out, and then I'll normally park it in an area that has a clean spot, make sure I'm not developing any drips or drops of coolant coming off of the car onto that spot. And I'm just going to drive and make sure that my temperature is going to be okay and I don't have any problems with my heat coming through my vents or anything like that. And then I'm going to do one last check of my coolant level to make sure that I don't have any issues with my coolant level, and then I'm going to return it back to the customer or back to my garage if it's my car. So that's all we have today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm going to try to develop a little bit more out of the ordinary vehicle that I'm used to. So this is a Volvo. This is my first Volvo video, and I hope you liked it. If you did, leave me a like and leave me a comment. And as always, subscribe to the channel. I'm really close to 500 subscribers, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a milestone for me. So I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, I'm on VK, I'm on Instagram. Find me there. I post a lot of content that I don't normally post or can't post on YouTube. So give me a look out there. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.